Hello there, I'm Dominic St-Pierre, and you're listening to Go Podcast. Today I'm joined by Peter Strøiman, and he is the creator of Gost, a headless browser. Before we dive into the interview, I'd like to remember everyone that we are on the Gophers channel called Go Podcast, so in one word. So again, I mean, I won't shut up with it until there is, way more people than that in there. I know that we have a lot of listeners, so maybe you're not on the Gophers Slack. I don't know. If you are, then it could be nice if you can join this channel. I'd like to start taking, voice question, maybe voice question to guests that are coming to the show, or just question in general. So just trying to make the podcast a little bit more dynamic and things like that. So if you want to join, we are in Go Podcast, the channel in the Gopher Slack. So the website for the podcast is gopodcast.dev. So in case there's a link in there to join the channel as well. If you want to listen to previous episodes and things like that, it's all there. All the links are there to listen the show in your favorite podcast listener tool. And on that, this is the interview. Hello, Gophers. So I'm joined by Peter Strøiman today. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Peter, you are working on a very, very cool and intriguing open source project. But before we dive into that, I'd like, I'm always asking this question to everyone here. If you can, present yourself, introduce yourself, anything that you want to send us as information so we know you a little bit better. So I'm mostly interested, if you can focus on, technical stuff, of course, but, how did you come across Go and things like that, and if you have done other languages and things like that. So anything that you want to tell us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm getting pretty old, and I've been in the software industry for more than 25 years. And before that, I actually started coding. I think I was about 10 years old when my older brother got an Amstrad CPC. I wasn't really allowed near it, but I could read the instruction manual, and that was mostly description of the basic programming language. And that's the first time I learned programming, and I think that intrigued me. And yeah, then I started working in 1997 part-time while completing my studies, and I've been full-time software developer ever since. Been doing freelance work for the most of that time, and I've been doing a lot of web applications, and some years ago I decided this is kind of my specialty. This is what I want to do and excel at. So yeah,
nice. So when you say freelance almost all this time, this is impressive. I mean, so is there a reason for that?
Actually, it's a reason that I didn't actually learn until about a year and a half ago. So I got diagnosed with ADHD,
okay,
and that made me realize why sticking on to sort of a long employment really wasn't a good fit for me, because I thrive when I get new challenges. I need things to be challenging, and when you stay the same place for too long, it gets the daily routine, and then I just my brain starts shutting down. So I didn't actually know that until a year and a half ago.
So did that change anything in your other than that? So did that change anything? Have you understood more things that you were doing that explain that and things like that?
Yeah, most certainly. For example, I've had a few roles with some kind of management responsibility, like Scrum Master roles. And while I know exactly what I should do, I just couldn't really get around to do those kind of things because it was more fun to actually write code. And so like it wasn't like mentally a difficult thing to do those things, but like, or what you call intellectually difficult, but yeah, now I know why I just couldn't, like why I was poor in those roles and excelled in actual software development.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting. My wife does have that, so I hear a lot of what you are saying, to be frank. So what about freelance then? Have you seen this field evolved a lot in all those years? Because I've been doing freelance myself for the last, I would say, maybe 17 years now. But before that, I was a 9-to-5 employee.
Yeah, I think first of all it depends a lot on the market, like where you really are. But I think it's been roughly the same, but there's been, of course, been ups and downs. So again, during the finance crisis in like 2009, a lot of the companies that use freelancers are financial institutions, and so they cancel a lot of contracts. That meant a lot of freelancers competing for the same job, so it was kind of difficult. I was a little bit fortunate sitting on a longer project during those years, and I've also seen that like in the recent half year, like since summer, it's also been pretty difficult to get something, at least here in Denmark where I live. But it's also, I mean, I think in like Sweden and Germany, like my two neighboring countries, firing employees is like legally extremely difficult, and that makes it more likely for companies to use freelancers if they don't really know how many they need, because there's a legal reason to use them.
I can see that. So would you say that being a freelancer made you learn more programming languages?
Most probably, because I've been like doing a lot of many different things. Most of the time it's been .NET, but there's been C++, VB Script, Visual Basic, F#, Go, obviously, and in the recent years, a lot of JavaScript, focusing on web development, which becomes, of course, more and more JavaScript heavy.
The inevitable JavaScript.
Yeah, and then are the ones that I learned for fun, like OCaml, which I think is a beautiful language. But I haven't had paid work using OCaml.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I really like the ML family. Myself, I learned that, or at least my first experience was with Elm, actually, in 2017. So, and I discovered that, and I was like, wow, this is really nice. So I always wanted to try, Haskell and things like that. Never. The tooling for me was already too much. Just installing the things and the amount of packages that do install like natively on your system, that was way too much that I could accept from a language to try it out. But once I discovered Helm, I was like, this is so interesting. And the functional programming is really nice. I compared the tooling of Helm with Go at some point, which I posted on both Reddit, the Helm Reddit and the Go, and was not really well received because, but I was mainly talking about the tooling, because Helm also had a formatter and had the compiler is extremely fast. There's testing baked in, so I was mainly drawing a comparison between the way that you are working day to day with Go is very similar to what you would do in Elm, and I was finding that very refreshing compared to typical, React and TypeScript kind of project.
Yeah.
So TDD, this is interesting. I did an episode recently about that. I'm struggling personally, not with TDD, but with testing in general. I inevitably find my test suite. I don't like it at some point, and something like that. I guess it's just a mentality. I'm probably not good at that yet, even though I've been trying to do that for a long time. But this seems to be something that you are mastering.
Yeah, I hope I am. But I've so I've been practicing TDD since about 2010, and it's a skill that I've learned over many years. And like with the thing I did back in 2010, I wouldn't even call it TDD today, even though it still gave benefits. But I've had a few like aha moments. The first was actually that project. I realized that like it was a project with many layers, C# code with a thick client, a WPF application. So you had sort of like a domain layer in the application, you had a presentation layer and a communication layer talking to a backend that had a communication layer, domain layer, database layer, and then you had the database tables. And sometimes you needed to make like a feature required changes in all of these layers. And like one day after being working on the project for a long time, and I had made changes to all of these layers driven by test, I found something very remarkable happened, and that was it worked the first time. I was like, whoa.
Nice.
And then I realized how much time I saved by not having to debug the application, because like debugging through all of this, and there was like no hot code reloading or anything like that. So every time I made a change to the code, I need to restart the application, navigate manually to the window where you had the issue and try again. And like that was like debugging and finding bugs was a lot of time wasted. So just by like the thing working the first time, it was like extreme amount of time I saved on that. And then there was a lot of cases where it didn't work the first time, but finding the issue was pretty trivial. Like the WPF layer wasn't like statically checked, so it might so it could be a matter of like just poor bindings and change a text in the like WPF files would be enough. So that's the first time where I really saw like, okay, this isn't something that is just providing a benefit. Like 6 months from now, I receive the benefit up front.
I can see that. I was not remembering. I did WPF in another life, and I was not remembering that. Yeah, the binding is not actually the type checking, or at least you can write. It's just string at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So how would you compare that to Go? Are you finding that it's a little bit easier, or at least a little bit more comfortable to do TDD in Go?
In many ways. First of all, like .NET, the first iterations weren't really built for testing in mind. I did a lot of like web applications, and you had this, what did they call it? The web forms. Where the system would construct the objects for you. So you didn't even have any control of how things got created. So just in that sense, that like just the industry's move towards promoting testable code is, of course, a huge help. But one thing that for example, in Go, specifically for web applications, is you have your web application is represented by like a single function. You have in the HTTP package, you have the handler interface, which just has a single function, the serve HTTP. So when I test like my HTTP server, I don't actually have to make HTTP requests. I can just call a function. So I can test the entire HTTP layer without just like any other component. I can do dependency injection if I want, like replace dependencies, and that's like makes it so much simpler to when you have, and it's also going back to OCaml. You have like the Dream framework for OCaml. You have the same thing there. You have like your HTTP server is just a single function, so you can call your function in test. There are a few minor differences, but like the overall principle of just like calling a function to test your HTTP is so much simpler.
Yeah. So I think it will be a good time to introduce the project now. So the project is called Gost, and I will let you introduce it.
Yeah, so Gost is a headless browser. So it acts like a browser, and it's written in Go, and it's obviously intended to test Go projects. And so you can create an instance and connect it to your HTTP server, and again, you just connect it to your like function, so you don't need to actually start the server on a TCP port, and then it can like consume HTML and execute JavaScript using a built-in V8 engine, and then from your Go test code, you're able to inspect the DOM as it is, so you can see like, if I click a button, does it have the desired effect? You can fill out forms, submit them, and verify things work as they should. And again, you can replace dependencies in your web application, and you have like each browser has its own V8 instance, so you can run the test in parallel, in full isolation. And the idea started really because I saw the Primogens course in HTMX, and after I've done a lot of React projects, I felt that HTMX was actually a really, really nice way of writing like interactive applications, because React does bring a lot of complexity. So you can make really nice user interfaces in React, but you also bring a lot of complexity compared to just server-side rendering. And HTMX can create a lot of the like nice user interface, but in a much simpler way. Yeah, so I think that like more than 90% of all React projects could be done much simpler using HTMX. And then if you have really complicated UI, you can always put like a React component inside like an HTMX skeleton. So it's really only if you need a true progressive web app, then HTMX is out of the question.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. HTMX is I always combined it with Alpine JS myself. So when you need to have on-page interaction and whatnot, Alpine is also very, very simple. Just a couple of attributes, and that's fine. So the question is, Peter, my God, why are you building a browser? This is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it started like so it combines. So I wanted to test the HTMX, and I wanted to do it in a TDD way. I started browsing, like searching for what does people use, and people use like actual browsers, like browser automation. And in my experience, that is like brings in a significant overhead, and you don't tend to write the test first, so you actually don't get the benefit of TDD, which is really like it sets up a fast feedback loop. So I really wanted to have something headless in the programming language you're using. And so it really started as an experiment. Can I do this? And so I first started trying to see, okay, I got two major issues I need to solve to see if this is possible. Can I parse HTML? And can I embed a V8 engine? And I know that Go can interact with C code, V8 is C++. It should probably be possible. And so I first started looking at a parser. And it's something I've done before, though HTML is slightly different than normal parsers because you have to provide a result, even if the input is not valid. If your source code is not valid, your compiler will say error. But if your HTML is not valid, you still need to use a DOM. I decided to not deal with that to begin with. Just see, can I decode a very simple HTML. I got to that point and then say, okay, let me get can I get V8 integration? There was actually already a project that provided this for Go, so there's a V8 Go project. Yeah, so I found V8 Go and got this embedded into the code and then said, okay, here's a script tag. And when I encountered the script tag, can I execute the script? And I managed to get that far. And okay, this is pretty cool. I can fetch HTML. And again, by just calling your Go handler function and pass the script. Then the next thing is, okay, can I then say, okay, I have a script source. Can I download the script and execute it? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And I started doing stuff like, okay, what kind of DOM does the script see? Because it needs to happen at the correct time during DOM construction and sort of okay, I got these basic things to work and I posted in the Golang subreddit and I got a massive amount of attention and feedback and people oh, this is extremely cool. And
yeah,
so I was okay, let's try continue and see where it leads us. And yeah, so it became a little bit of a challenge. I continued and saying, okay, let me get I think by the time I posted it, I had an HTMX embedded, it could load HTMX. And I think maybe it's just without any errors. And I could react to it emits an event when it's loaded completely. And I think that's where I sort of okay, let me publish this. And then I started looking into interacting with elements and say, okay, I click something. Can this trigger an action HTMX fetches new content, swaps the content? And okay, so I got that working. Okay, nice. Let me see, can I get forms working? So you have something big part of many applications, and I got that working. And with HTMX support, so actually you can click links in the browser, but it doesn't my code doesn't actually yet follow HTTP redirects, but HTMX the HTMX code works.
Yeah, that's impressive. So would you say that it's lighter than using something like Chrome DP? I don't know if you know Chrome DP. It's it's akin to Puppeteer in the JavaScript world, where it basically just connects to the Chrome dev server.
Yeah, because everything is it's just a function call. You don't have any out of process communication. You're just calling Go functions.
Yeah. And V8, so you were mentioning that you are currently using a project that, is embedding the normal V8 inside a Go package?
Yes, that is correct. Although I did need to make some extensions to it because there's a lot of features in V8 that was necessary for my use case that wasn't actually in the V8 package. So it was a long time since I programmed in C++, but so that was a lot of
Just admit it, you were missing it, right?
I always described C++ a bit I would say driving a sports car. You can go pretty fast, but you can definitely also feel the suspension working.
That's good. I haven't wrote any C++ since school, way back. I never had the chance.
But one of the things, for example, the V8 is really a C++ library because the way you do resource management with objects on stack, that's sort of you need to C++, at least in my experience. And that's something that V8 relies a lot on.
So is it a recent version of V8? Is it able to run, let's say, can I write a let keyword and it will understand what it is?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked actually, because that can allow me to give a big shout out to another GitHub user called Tommy. So the original project is created by GitHub user Rockchap, and then GitHub user Tommy actually took this project and updated it with latest V8 versions and has made a GitHub pipeline that pulls latest V8 from the Chromium sources. So that's actually pretty awesome. And then, as I said, I've done a lot of work then extending the functionality with like features that are in V8 but weren't exposed in the Go project. Tommy did an amazing work on that as well. And the original project isn't being maintained at the moment. But all my changes, I'm kind of working with Tommy to get them into his branch.
Very nice. The power of open source.
Yeah, I'm also glad you brought that up, because that's like one thing I've seen as like a major change in my time is like when I started, you purchased like software development tools and you purchased like component libraries and stuff like that. But like with open source, like it's changed so much, and it's changed for the better. It's like I owe so much to open source, and it's like huge difference it's made to the software development community industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I started with VB actually on a Windows desktop application, and there were some component that we bought. I don't exactly recall the name of the company, but at some point the company just closed, and now a couple of years later, it was kind of very difficult to find those DLL anymore.
Yeah, what do you do when then like there's a new Windows version and these components no longer work?
Exactly. Yeah. That was crazy.
So truly, like the power of open source, it's like amazing. I think in my mind, still, like open source is a much more important change to the software industry than AI is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The problem with AI is that we're still not really sure exactly what kind of problem it will bring.
Yeah. So,
but that's another story, I guess.
So, but yeah.
So about this V8 then, is it like possible to have your library, I guess, in a CI pipeline and just run the test there?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So first of all, the Gost itself runs like tests in a pipeline where like many of the tests set up and like HTTP handler themselves delivering content that is relevant for the feature being tested. So it's doing it itself.
Nice. So I was intrigued to hear you say that you had built a parser. I was in the impression that there was something in the standard library, because I guess that for the templates that there is already something.
Yeah, that's actually true. I started building a parser, and I was facing some sort of like, how should I design this? How should I design that? Again, wrote a question in the Golang subreddit, and someone mentioned that there is the x/net/html package that actually has a parser.
Yeah.
And so I actually quickly adopted that.
Nice.
Their model doesn't work as sort of like my model for a lot of reasons. For example, scripts needs to be executed at the correct time during DOM tree construction, and they don't execute scripts, of course. But the thing I have right now is I do it like in 2 steps. I use their package to pass it into their structure, and then I just iterate through their structure to construct my own structure. And then they have dealt with all the rules of how to handle invalid HTML. So I didn't actually have to deal with that problem. It is handled correctly now, and that's pretty nice. And there are other things that, for example, the HTML template element, the children in the HTML doesn't actually become children of the element, which is something I actually didn't know. I'm
sorry, I'm not sure I understand that.
So there's a specific element called a template, like HTML element. And when you have it in the HTML like text, everything you have inside actually becomes like children of a document fragment that is on the template element. So there are other places where the structure of the HTML text doesn't map to the DOM one-to-one.
Oh,
so
interesting.
So which is also why I need my own like parsing layer, because these roots are not in the library that I use. But it simplified the HTML parsing significantly and allowed me to then focus on like moving on and solving the problem. And if somebody wants to contribute and make a dedicated parser that eliminates this two-step parsing, I wouldn't mind it, but it's like not a priority to optimize that at the moment.
Yeah, I would guess it does not really take that long of a time. So I would imagine that you are downloading. So let's say I have a script tag in my HTML and it's an src URL. So I would imagine that you are downloading that in between those two parsing phases.
Yes, that is correct. I would say during the second phase, like when I construct my DOM from like iterating the other structure. So when I get to the script tag and say, okay, I mount it into the DOM, I check, okay, what is the source? And then I like download it. But again, downloading is just calling, I assume you have an HTTP server that serves it. So I'm just calling the Go function. I'm actually not like doing a TCP request. So
yeah.
And then it's being executed at that time. And if it's a script tag with content, like you have the script inside the script tag, it's also being executed when mounted.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine this is a major step, because there's a lot of discussion around the HTML template package that, well, they are not type checked and whatnot. So this can be great, because now not only, well, with normal tests you can also test your template. That's true, but now you can test your interaction and also some server-side rendering that you would do from submitting a form. This is kind of very, very interesting.
But I would add that if you are if you have like a pure server-side rendering, I wouldn't recommend going this route. I would probably just go for, okay, make an HTTP request and verify, like parse the HTML you get back and verify it has the correct shape. But this is like specifically intended for the HTMX, where the behavior of your application becomes like a big choreography of, you have the attributes and certain elements. They trigger some certain endpoints on your server, which are designed to be called by HTMX, and then provide something with specific HTTP response headers that are intended to have a specific effect when HTMX parses it. So in order to test this in a way where you actually see the produced effect, that's where I would recommend using this. I would say it's probably overkill if you just like deliver static HTML content.
Right. Oh yeah, I understand what you are saying. So any challenges that surprising aspect that you have you needed to overcome so far?
Yeah, the first thing I was sort of like is implementing the DOM itself, because there is a specification. I need to like follow that specification, and that is a very object-oriented like specification. You have like parent, children, circular references, and you have elements overriding behavior. For example, I mentioned the template that has like specific rules for how it works. And Go isn't an object-oriented language in that regard. So while you have embedding, where you can say, okay, I have an object and I can embed it into another one, which can like then have the same methods, but I might override some in my like the one that is embedding the object. If I then call into a function on the embedded object, it doesn't know anything about being embedded. You don't have this like override functionality. So that was how sort of like a challenge figuring that out. And like there are many, I'm not totally happy with how it works. What I've done right now is whenever I create an object, I call the sort of like embedded node passing like an interface representation of it, you can say its outer self to the embedded node. So when, for example, you iterate through children, it doesn't return the sort of like embedded node object, but it actually returns a reference to the embedder, being the specific HTML element implementation.
Right.
It might be. And I'm kind of wondering if a strategy pattern would have been better, but that provides some other challenges because all the different elements have different functions that need to be implemented. So, but it's working. But yeah, every single specialized element needs to call this function. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's interesting. This part, I mean, because of the Go construct, it's difficult to express yourself like you would do maybe in C#, for example. I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like I mentioned, OCaml. I was kind of thinking, like, how would it be to make this in OCaml? I think it would be like a nightmare to implement this this kind of behavior in OCaml.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because this isn't like you don't even have the same object notation like the pure functional programming. I mean, OCaml isn't pure, but being idiomatic in OCaml, I think it could be like even more difficult. But yeah, but I would say that's probably one of the main challenges. Like you are modeling an API, a specification that just is like so object-oriented, like mid-1990s, like how we design things when I started in the industry.
Yeah. Do you see Gost as being used for something else? Is it could it be, if you extend your vision for the future, is it only for testing?
I mean, of course you can use it for other purposes. It is intended for testing, but I mean, you have a headless browser. There are some memory issues at this right now that if you keep it alive for a long time, like each browser instance, it will leak memory. So that's not a problem for the intended use, but and some of it is in my code. Some of it I think is actually down in the V8 Go, that it's holding on to objects that it's not really releasing. But I've been actually dealing with that problem because I see the weak pointers being a tool I can help solve the memory issues. So I've been waiting for Go 124 to come out, which just released. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, because I was imagining maybe some automation that would not want to use the full Chrome browser, for example.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can use it for all kinds of automation. And if we get the memory issue solved, you can even use it for sort of like long-running processes. But
interesting. So when
but again, so but you sort of like you can also ask, is it the right tool for the job, because it is sort of like built to fit inside a Go context where you are exercising your Go code and might want to replace some dependencies in your Go code while writing the test. So yeah, you can definitely have like much faster execution because everything is in process. Everything is just function calls compared to having browser automation. But is that beneficial for like automation?
Yeah, might not be. I was just curious if if that's.
But I mean, it's like, of course you can use it for other purposes than what it was built for. Eventually, it should probably also be able to handle React. I doubt it would work today in the current state, but.
Because of the module system, I would
No, mostly because I basically have just added support for just enough to get these features of HTMX running.
Yeah.
So yeah, so at this, I'm building sort of like a like example application now on the side, and so the features I need for that application will very much dictate like how things are prioritized, unless I get like feedback from other users, of course.
Right. Yeah. So this is entering the the life cycle of an open source project. Now it's because I've seen the project on Reddit as well, and yes, the reaction is seems to be very positive so far.
Yeah. So I hope it will gain traction, and because I mean, one of the reasons why I continued with this is because I truly believe this can be a very, very helpful tool.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah. So have you used it yourself in production? So that is why you are building this this project on the side, I would imagine.
I would not call it production, but it is. It's. I had an idea for an application which I started, and which is like, then okay, I want to have a headless browser, and I think that the Gost will be have a higher chance of becoming a success than the website idea I had, which is why I'm more focused on Gost and spend so much time on it. But at least it is kind of a concrete idea that can help drive like actual necessary features, so it doesn't become like just theoretic what would be helpful.
And do you think this is a part that we are leaving a little bit, like the HTML interaction in testing in general?
That's a good question. So I would when I've been doing React applications, it's been a lot like testing interactions and building tests that would interact with the components as a user would. I mean, one of the like big inspirations for me, like you have the JS DOM, obviously, and there's also testing library, which seems to be also the sort of the way to test right now, and that promotes like interacting with the application in a way that the user also would. It promotes writing also more accessible applications. So say I need to fill out an input field. So instead of saying, okay, it has some ID attribute, you go in and say, find a text field that has a label email, for example. And the library doesn't, like, it can be a label element associated with input using the for attribute. It can be like an area label attribute on the input, and it can be like area labeled by referencing another element. But you have it promotes good practices to make sure you bring the context to the input fields. And yeah, that's what I've been like practicing a lot for testing React applications. But something I don't see so much in like in other contexts where like test suites using browser automation, it becomes very technical in how they're described. They're described through element IDs and so on, rather than describing actual user interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me is close to my heart, I would say, because that is the first thing that I was thinking myself when I saw your project. I was like, I was wondering if it could be something that I would use to ensure that a page is accessible or not. So from a screen reader user point of view, just what you described is extremely important. Just having the basic, I would call that the basic, having the the for or the area, but it seems it's a challenge to test for accessibility, I think.
Yeah, and it's also it's an area that I see is like very much it isn't getting the focus that it should have. Building accessible applications doesn't really need to take more work, but it requires some knowledge. And I like personally will spend time like researching what is sort of like the best way to do it. But then I have learned, then I know the next time it's mostly just a matter of knowing which attributes to set to make sure that like the different elements exist in the correct context. That so like a visual, like a person with normal vision looks at the page, you have like a 2-dimensional view of the page. You can easily see that, like bring everything into context, but like having just these small attributes behind the scenes that bring this context, it's overlooked. And also like other properties, like people who cannot use a mouse, for example, forced to use a keyboard. Make sure you have like focus indicators around what is currently in focus, contrast ratio for like those that don't need screen readers but still have limited vision, the use of color for like colorblind.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's not particularly difficult to do, but people like I generally find that most are unaware of these challenges, and I actually just became aware that like here in Europe we have new EU legislation coming into force this summer, June 28th. Like most information systems need to adhere to accessibility standards. And that includes like B2B websites, software as a service, mobile applications, like most information systems.
That will be major. I must admit. I hope that we will have that at some point.
Yeah. So
here, but yes, Europe is always quicker to like with the GDPR, for example. This is another example. I was testing just to return to accessibility is hard. I was testing Claude for the first time the other day, the Anthropic AI, and it's terribly not accessible. So once you finish to enter your prompt, well, first of all, you are not even announced that the thing has a response. And this is so easy to do. It's one attribute. It's called it's either aria announce or aria polite. So, but that is minimal. I would be able to live without that. But now you need to navigate to the response, and they don't even have a good way for me to start from the input box and go to the response. I need to have some crazy workaround. Just adding a header there with my question would have worked for me. So sometimes it's not even the property of elements, but just the elements themselves.
Yeah.
Just put headers everywhere. When you have a loop, you're looping something. Let's say you have a list of comments in a page. Just have the title of the comment be in H4, for example. That will do 90% of what a screen reader user needs to do to navigate quickly to that.
Yeah, so actually one of the so in my this like example projects, it's also where I'm kind of like building different helpers to help like write tests, and one of them is like get the title of the page which looks for one H1 element, like one heading 1. Because there should be one and exactly one, for example.
Yeah.
And will make the test fail if you have 0 or many.
Yeah, exactly. So is there? Did I read that correctly? But I think on the issues on GitHub, you were there's something like you would want to build a Go V8. From scratch?
No, not so much. No. But that's another thing. Actually, like starting using V8 was a mistake in some point because I didn't do my research. there's a pure Go JavaScript engine called Goja.
Yeah.
Which I am sort of like on the side adding support for as an alternative to V8. But no, it was more like, okay, it could be fun to write your own JavaScript engine, but that would take quite a long time before that would then have a working browser. But it would be nice to have a pure Go solution. And yeah, I didn't know that Goja existed. And so, yeah. But now that I have V8, it will definitely stay because you have a JavaScript engine where you can be sure that it's being updated with the latest JavaScript features. So whatever you use in your project, V8 will support it.
I was using Goja in static back in my open source project I did 3 years ago to run some kind of server side function. It was a backend as a service platform to. But yeah, it might have changed, but at the time, the JavaScript that this thing was able to execute was ECMAScript 5, not anything earlier than that. So I'm unsure if HTMX would have worked with it.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's also what they sort of still mention on the README file. So, which is like ECMAScript 5 is actually the version that never got officially published. Yeah. So I would also say ECMAScript 5 would mean that probably ES6 modules wouldn't work because they were introduced in ECMAScript 6.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm continuing to add support, and then let's see if HTMX is going to work when I get it. When I get the Goja implementation up to date with V8.
Yeah, sure. So that is great. I mean, it's a nice project. So do you need any help? What are you looking for in terms of community and whatnot? Is it something that you want to build further?
Yeah, I would love to see this like becoming a mature product that you can actually use, a library. And yeah, definitely I could use help, like specifically like if there are people who have experience building browser engines, that would help a lot. I mean, I've done web applications for 20 years and I'm surprised at how many things I didn't know, like how many things that didn't work when I started doing this. So yeah, that's definitely, I would love to get other contributors. And yeah, I've had a lot of spare time because I wasn't the freelance market has been pretty poor, which means I've spent a lot of time doing this. If I could live off contributions, open source contributions, and then dedicating my time to this, it would be pretty amazing. But it's not in the near future that would happen.
Yeah.
So so I would need to take some paid jobs, and then obviously the productivity on Gost would go down.
Yeah, sure. What I've seen with people that are able to sustain themselves with their project is, well, often it's because there are one or two companies that are sponsoring them for something substantial. Yeah. Because it's pretty hard to squeeze some monthly recurring revenue from users of a library. I found.
Yeah, if anybody from Google is sitting out there, hey, this is going to add value to Go, the programming language.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are listening as well.
Yeah. Well, so. You can, and maybe we're a large enough donation can persuade me to only use V8, perhaps.
Oh. the message is sent.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you very much. It was great. So do you have any closing thoughts in here? Any resources? Anything that you want to say?
No, I don't think so at the moment.
Perfect. So All right, so it was great. So thank you, and maybe we can redo an episode later when there's some milestone that you have reached and things like that.
Yeah, sure. If you want to do something like specifically on TDD testing and stuff like that, I'd be happy to also participate in that.
Yeah, I would like that. All right, Peter, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice being here.
All right, that's it for this week. I would really appreciate if you can talk or share about this podcast. It's always helpful. Also, another way to support this show is by purchasing my course. There's always a link in the show notes. So on that, see you next week.